and gentlemen, we have a very special guest here on the Just Acting Up show. I'm trying to get all his everything right. Director, writer, producer, content creator, and artivist. Cool. Man,
that's good.
I had to do it, bro. I had to do it.
Thank you.
I gotta also say husband and father as well. So gotta acknowledge that. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Good, man. Now, I was trying to read everything. So, where are you originally from? Are you from? Is it Louisiana or Atlanta or?
Yeah, Louisiana. I was born in Metairie Hospital. Grew up in New Orleans, and then kind of bounced around. So Florida, Georgia, Atlanta. Left Atlanta. Was in the music business. Went to New York, then LA for the film business. So been all around.
All around. So yeah, all the hot spots everywhere, boy. We were just talking about Louisiana earlier, boy. That food right there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, man. Get you in trouble, man. Obviously.
Man, dude, real quick, man. I went out to Louisiana early in the morning to shoot the Street Fighter commercial with Lil Wayne in it, bro. And
okay.
it was like,
wow.
Man, it was like 5. Yeah, man, it was like 5 something in the morning. I had to be there around 7. I go to the gas station and I'm just getting something to drink real quick. This lady had some hot links and boudin right on the front register.
You're like, oh, don't mind if I do.
Yeah. That's kind of like Texas, where you could go to you go to the right place at Third Ward, you'll get some hot links in an egg roll, in the gas station. It's the same kind of thing, so you might end up with some gator meat.
Let me get up out of here, man. But it was smelling good.
Right.
Man. I hit my nose, the aroma.
That's funny.
Man, I'm telling you, I was struggling, bro. I was struggling, man. But yeah, man, let's go ahead and get into it, man. So, what was the first film, or who inspired you to start your journey on becoming a director?
Man, I was trying to get out of the music business. Really, I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I was trying to get out of the music business, and I ended up, there's a couple stories. I'll try to pick the short one. I met Spike Lee. That's the short version. And he gave me some advice, which I've never uttered to anyone to this day. And I wouldn't say what he said. He would deny it, I'm sure. I've actually seen him deny it. So, but he gave me some advice, and it was some hardcore advice. And that was like the first person who was like, anybody I had, met in the business that had accomplished anything on that level. And then at that, I was a fan. I was a huge fan, so I, watched, obviously Do the Right Thing. Mm-hmm. In school days, Malcolm X was a big thing for me. When I was in high school, I was probably as part of my Artivist side. I ended up leading a walkout when Malcolm X premiered. So all the students, the students, man, I think that was my senior year. We walked out of school. We walked out of class midday to catch a matinee, led by me. To watch Malcolm X. So that was my moment of protest. So yeah, but I mean, I kind of, I grew up in the South. School was very different at that time for us. That's an even longer story. So I'm gonna try to stick to what you guys ask.
No worries. Like I said, this is a platform where you're able to express yourself however long you want to go.
Got you.
But we want to right now give you your flowers early because we know you were granted a doctorate in film and media studies. Is that correct?
Yeah. Thank you.
Tell us more about that moment for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got a call. I remember I was just sitting in my office just, trying to figure out some stuff for the day. And I got a call. I think at first it came from my manager too. And then he was like, yeah, you need to expect a call. And then I got a call from Dr. Robinson at Artivist Korstiaan University in Dallas. And they were like, hey, we really, are amazed by your work and what you've done over the course of your career. And, how would you feel about receiving an honorary, doctorate degree for film studies? And I was just like, what? And he was like, well, yeah, that's part of it. We also have a presidential award for you as well for lifetime achievement and a medal for community service from Joe Biden. And I was just like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? And so I ended up with 3 awards. Ended up, obviously 2 awards in the degree. And so it was a fantastic thing. Ended up going down there and having a ceremony and a graduation. And so I received a medal and the certificate as well for lifetime achievement. And man, it was crazy. So I was really honored. Yeah, shout out to Artivist Korstiaan University for that.
Yeah, man.
And Dr. Tu Lewis as well.
Yeah, man, that's a beautiful story. I love that. I know, like you said, you got that call. You was like, wait a minute, hold on. You sure you got the right person for this? Right?
Oh yeah, man.
You like what, about 12? How many years in the game you been in so far?
Oh, I mean, over 2 decades now. So I've been in the game for a minute. I think my bio doesn't, depending on what bio you read, it's not caught up. But yeah, man. So I've been almost 22 years.
Come on now.
And so, and I mean, honestly, I'm a street dude too, man. So I came from, a lot of different stuff, hustling and, getting in trouble and just all kind of stuff. So I never thought, I would be here at all or to be honored, so a lot of this stuff is mind blowing from that standpoint.
Amazing, brother. Amazing, man. So 2-part question. When you were in the writing room, what inspires you to create? And also tell the world, what is an artivist?
Gotcha. I love to be in more writers' rooms. Things are very different now, especially with the pandemic hit, and then with the strike, things have changed a lot. And so a lot of deals, a lot of things weren't coming back. I was actually, I've written on a couple shows. Both of those never really did much. And then I ended up on this huge show right before the strike. And then the strike hit. And that was like my first time I'd be like exec producing and writing something really, really, really huge. And since it's not out, I can't really talk about it. Right. But yeah, it was just one of those opportunities where, it was missed. I'm sure something will come back around in God's timing. But just in general, writing for me, whether it's just writing scripts, which is mainly what I've done for a long time, is written a lot of projects and written for people. And so the writing process for me has just always been something that I really enjoyed, really love it. Writing in a writer's room is different. It's a team, but it's still a lot of fun. And I think to me, it reminds me of filmmaking. Filmmaking is very, what's the word? It's a partnership in a way, and it's a conglomerate of different people working together as a body. And so, that happens in the writer's room. People are throwing out ideas, and one of those ideas is going to stick, but only one person gets to write that particular story when that happens. But writing for film, it's unless you're partnered with somebody, which is really, I think I've only written with one partner once in terms of film. But yeah, it's more of a thing where you just, for me, it's very much man, I can't even, I guess I can't find the words. I just really enjoy it. It is difficult. I've written really fast. feature films, which, are, 2-hour movies for the most part, 90 minutes to 120-minute films. There was a time in my career when I first started out, I was writing features every, 3 days, 4 days, I was finishing a feature project. And that's crazy. Like that was a lot of writing. And I would do that, several times in a year. And in one year in particular, all those projects had gone to a studio or gathered some kind of interest. And that kind of led me to a deal at the time with a big studio in Hollywood. And that kind of is what propelled my career after that, in terms of me meeting people and realizing that I was a writer that people were, sought after or seeking after. And so it gave me a leg up in Hollywood from that standpoint. So, yeah, it allowed me to write for tons of Oscar winners and Oscar winning producers, and doing rewrites, getting called in. So I've, written for, oh my gosh. It was the producers who did Loving. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it was a movie about an interracial couple. And they, Ruth Negga and Joel Edgerton, starred in that movie. Ruth Negga was nominated for an Oscar, but I wrote their latest movie, which they're producing now. And then got on the Will Smith project before, where I got hired to to rewrite a Seinfeld writer, which was crazy, and write for this Borat director as well, which was crazy. You know what I mean? Like writing comedy, I didn't even know that's what I was called to do. Written for Jamie Foxx, and with Jamie Foxx in a sense, as a co-writer, as I think about somebody who's been somebody who had a credit in terms of a script together. So yeah, at the top of my mind, just different people, and then you have people attached. I mean, from Mahershala Ali, who won multiple Oscars, and even gosh, oh man, there's so many people. It's hard to think about, but yeah. So regardless, man, just a lot of great opportunities in the industry, and a lot of opportunities with great people. Projects. Idris Elba was one of the first projects I was able to land an attachment. Ryan Gosling at one point wanted to do a project. Just different people, man. It's really dope. It'd be mind blowing. As far as Artivism, what Artivism is, it's a combination of art and activism. So I'm known as an artist and an activist, and so my stories and what I try to do in terms of kind of being known for the birth of a nation, which was one of the bigger projects that I had done. Obviously, spoke of Nat Turner and his journey and what that story historically meant to us as Black people, as well as even the title, which Nate Parker, who wore so many hats on that project and did a wonderful job. Made a point of naming it after the original The Birth of a Nation, which was a racist Ku Klux Klan film. And so this was kind of a way to slap that film in the face, but to also say, we're entering a new space artistically, in the country, with him coming on and him directing, writing, producing, acting. I was happy that I was able to, give script notes on that project, where that's when somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, I wrote this, what's your opinion? Tell me some yays and nays, etc. And then I was also wearing multiple hats as a producer. And although, I did that, a lot of things didn't quite come to light based on the controversy that people may or may not know about that. And so we actually produced a full-length documentary, which I headed, which that got canned and shelved based on the controversy. So that never aired, and who knows, it may or it may never air. but yeah, I mean, it was a real amazing experience. And I mean, I've worked with the Tamir Rice his family, particularly the Tamir Rice Foundation, Samaria Rice's mom, and co-wrote his story actually, and was producing his story, which landed at a big agency and got a lot of, a lot of buzz in terms of artists. I think the industry is kind of slowed down in these kind of projects, and so who knows if it'll see the light as well. Been circling some other prominent people. Some I can say, some I can't. But Medgar Evers' story was working with the Evers family. I wrote a pilot for him and was working on the feature film as well. Which again, those things look really prominent before the strike, and now could look to go in totally different directions. Even the fact that that story, especially with Merle Evers, who I love dearly and is a wonderful person. People need to know her story. Could go a totally different direction, but either way, it's a story I think that needs to be told.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
That strike, it kind of, everybody had a certain flow going. Like I think around that time, like I just got signed to Atlanta agency. Some other friends had so many things going on, and like just like you were saying, it kind of like it slowed down a lot of progression with some things. And man, we were just like, I'm sure that you know how it is and how it was. And it slowed us.
No, it's still going. I think the thing is, if it is your primary source of income, it hurts you. You know what I mean? So, and people didn't understand how it worked, and so they were like, "Oh, are you in the Writers Guild?" or "Oh, are you in the Actors Guild?" And I was like, think about it like this: even if you're not in the guild, I was a writer, so I was affected initially, right? But people don't understand, like, writers make everything work, right? Actors make everything work. But when the writers stop, they still try to press a little bit, but it was a problem, right? So it's like I explained to somebody, it's like a car engine. I said, if you have a car engine and you take the battery out, nothing's happening. Right. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, you take the battery out, you remove the spark plugs, the wires, and if you had a catalytic converter, somebody stole it. What are you doing? Right? Nothing. So you got people who, they went from working every day, man, or primarily, throughout the week, to driving Uber. Some people went homeless. Some people still are homeless. I think that's important to say, even during this time, because what happened with the strike was it became more of a, okay, if you want this, there's going to be a consequence, right? I think people sometimes don't look at stuff and say, well, what happens on the other end? Well, Hollywood says I can put opportunity in a chokehold because you put our money in a chokehold, right? So you want more money, that's not gonna mess up my situation. You're not gonna take my Lambo. You're not gonna take my private jet time. You know what I mean? And so that put people in a chokehold. And I think the problem with this industry is that it's not regulated, and it probably won't be, for a while, because I think honestly it gives people freedom to do so much dirt, if I'm being fair. And when people do dirt and they can get away with it, then they're not going to stop. You know what I mean? And there's too many people who are powerful in quotes, right? Who don't want their dirt exposed and don't want to stop doing their dirt. So,
let's take a little step back here. Now, you were creating the short film. You were working on Trees. I believe you mentioned that you wanted to tell a story without it sounding too preachy. So, do you feel like some films miss the mark or lose their audience when it goes that route into like trying to preach a certain message down the audiences?
Yeah, here's the thing I think that's interesting. On Trees is what you're referencing. It's a short film that I did. It was interesting because it was, suicide, was a topic. The pandemic stuff was happening. People weren't able to shoot during that time. And so I was like, how can I make a project during a pandemic and talk about that without talking about that? And, you know, kind of talk about this issue of Black bodies, you know, that were disappearing, or Black bodies that were turning up on trees, right? These lynchings, that modern day lynchings that were happening. And so it became, and mental health. And so it became this whole thing where I was like, I'm going to talk about mental health, suicide, and you know, this destruction of black men in particular, without saying anything about that. So that's where that happened. That's where the birth of that project happened. But I think, yes, to some degree, you have to learn how to do that in a way where it's I guess the best explanation is Hollywood is entertainment, right? They're not looking necessarily to educate people. If that happens in a way where it works, in quotes, then they're happy to produce that project or help get that project out there. You know, the thing is, specifically with us Black people, it's something about us. I was just having this conversation the other day. It's something about us where we inherently don't want to do anything creative unless there's an outlet where we can give something back from it. Some kind of message, right? Some people are better at doing that than others, but you just don't find it. I mean, if you think about the funniest person, you know, of our, you know, at least of this generation, I think would be Dave Chappelle, right? There's no time where you're not sitting through Dave Chappelle. Despite all the jokes, there's a message in what he's talking to you about, right? Yeah. And so there's something inherent about us culturally that we want to not just do art, but do art with purpose. The danger that comes from that is we tend to become very preachy, and we tend to become heavy-handed in what we present and how we present it. And Hollywood is dealing with escapism. So, you know, ever since the theater started, the picture show, etc., that was the idea that the everyday person could go to the movies and disappear. I got off my job, or my blue collar job, or my corporate job. I'm taking the wife, or, you know, the family out, and we're going to watch this film and forget about stuff, right? Yeah. So that's the idea of like a Citizen Kane or Casablanca, or, you know, and that's the reason why you can get Gone with the Wind and it be entertaining to them. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's right. Like, this ain't entertaining to me, right? what's up with Mammy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is, you know, and so there's a thing for them where, again, it's not going to be necessarily an educational thing. They may drop some, you know, there's an angle where they can address an issue within a film that's solitary, right? And then it can be seen as, oh, they addressed this worldwide issue in this project, but they're not going to do that, right? And so it's a really interesting formula from that standpoint. But the bottom line is, I think the best way to combat that is, one, to truly learn the craft of filmmaking and what that is, which is something I teach, and really like big on that is like getting, especially Black people, to understand how to make good films. What I guess the elements of what good film is, you know, the things you need to know and understand, and even encompassing that into making films as an artivist and what that means. If that's what you want to do, here are some examples of films that are artivism and why they work, right? I mean, there's a film that is really off the wall. Gosh, I forgot. It was with Lakeith Stanfield. It was really weird. Hey, he was the telemarketer. I can't remember the film. I should be embarrassed.
Sorry to bother you.
Yeah, Sorry to Bother You. And it's not everybody's favorite film, right? I'm not saying that film is not, you know, you may hate that film. Some people do, some people don't. But it had a lot of commentary, you know, in the film that wasn't necessarily Like you were like, okay, wait, I didn't see this coming, right?
Yeah.
And so that's an example of artivism. But I mean, again, so is do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so there's different aspects of these kind of films and what they look like. Get Out was one, right? It's another example of that. And so they happen. You just have to be careful. You know, I think when the police shootings were so, it's not even that they weren't prevalent. And I know, at least for me, we grew up, you know, and I'm sure anybody who's grown up, you know, around or within the inner city, you know, police shootings is something that happen all the time. You know what I mean? And so, but, you know, obviously with the age of social media and having phones, people recorded this and it became a thing. So I think the people who weren't exposed to that, specifically Black people who weren't exposed to this, thought it was something new. And so they started flooding Hollywood. Every movie was about somebody getting shot by a cop. And it was like, okay, how many movies are you going to be able to do like this, right? Yeah. And to be honest, we probably could do a ton. You know, I always bring up the point with the Jewish culture, right? In terms of the current Jewish culture in Israel. And obviously, you know, you have to be very delicate with topics. But the bottom line is, I was like, you know how many on average, how many Holocaust movies come out a year? And people have no idea. I mean, last time I checked, and this may be a couple of years ago, I think the number was between 63 to 73 different Holocaust projects come out every year. But if you start counting the number of films you had on specifically Black police violence, you probably don't get past it firsthand, right? There's something about us that exhausts people, right, in terms of trauma, which is why, hey, slavery, get over it, right? 9/11, never forget. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it's just there's something about us that exhausts people, right? Our culture is loved, but it's also hated. So, yeah.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And which leads me to the next how you spin activism, art and activism into one. And I also want to talk to you about when you created the film. Well, I know the short film called Fate. That was that based on a true story?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Fate. I mean, Fate was another. It was a specific act of artivism. I was working with a community center in LA at the time. I got a call saying, "Hey, can you help us with our kids here?" A former employee had worked for me at a time, who's now running this community center. Genesis Lopez is her name. Shout out to Genesis. And so she asked me to come to KYCC, which was a Korean youth community center, right? And so she asked me to come to KYCC, where these young Korean kids were, who I love all of those kids. They're halfway grown now. A lot of these kids are in college. Even, I mean, somebody probably graduated by now. But yeah, they were high school students at the time, and it was a marijuana prevention program. And to be honest, I was just like, in LA, marijuana prevention just seemed very strange because it was legal, you know what I mean? And so it was just a thing where it was like, this is going to be a difficult job, you know, trying to teach kids, you know, to stay away from marijuana in a place where it's legal and it's social, and people you go outside and somebody's smoking a blunt right in front of you, or just walking, you know, in 7-Eleven or something. So it was very different culture there. And so initially, I honestly kind of felt like this is silly, but I'm up for the challenge. Yeah. And I started doing some research. And I stumbled across the story of a gentleman, Fate Vincent Winslow, who was locked up in Angola, you know, penitentiary in Louisiana. And so obviously that struck me, you know, being from Louisiana, it struck me. Research on Angola has struck me. I think Angola and Louisiana in general had, at the time of my research, was only a few years ago, had locked up more people than anyone in the world. Like they were like they were the leaders for incarceration around the world, and so it was very scary. And what made that more scary, once I got into Faith's story, was finding out that the place where I was from and why people were getting so, at least one of the reasons is what people don't know is Louisiana has Napoleonic law. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Are you familiar?
No.
Yeah, nobody is. So they have laws that govern their state different from anybody else, right? So their laws don't apply the same as federal laws or state laws anywhere else. And it allows them to do things and change things. So in the case of Fate, Vincent Winslow, he was a homeless guy, at least at the time where I came into the story. He had been homeless and was sleeping on the street, I think in and out of a center, but at that particular time was sleeping on the street and was looking for some food. He was like hungry. Basically, he was pulling a Ludacris, trying to get some chicken and beer, you know what I mean? And he ran across a undercover cop, and the undercover cop said, "Hey, do you know where I can find prostitutes and some weed?" And Faith, they were a highly, it was an area where prostitutes were, everywhere. So the joke was like, look around, there's prostitutes everywhere. You know what I mean? But I can get you some weed. You just need to give me $5 to go get it for you. And then you give me the money, but I'll be your go-between. I'll get it for you because I need some food, right? So if you give me $5, I'll go get it for you, bring it back, right? And so I can get, some churches and something to drink, right? So the officer agreed, but he said, "Hey man, I'm gonna need 2 dime bags, right? So here's the 20. When you come back, you'll get the 5, right?"
Yeah.
And so he sent Fate. Fate got that money from this dealer. Got the weed from that dealer, came back. It was like, "Hey, here you go, man. Here's your weed. Give me my 5. Let me go get some food." Gave him the 5, then arrested him. Right? So then he finds out this guy's an undercover cop. He takes Fate and he says, "Hey man, where's the dealer?" Takes him to a dealer. It's a white dealer, right? He takes him to the white dealer. He takes the $20 that's marked. It's marked money, so it takes it back from him. He lets the white dealer go. They take Fate to jail at that point. So now Fate is just like, "Are you serious? Like, bro, like you just let the dealer go. You taking me to jail. Yeah. I was just trying to get some food. Yeah. And you sent me up." And I'm gonna tell you how devious this setup was. He takes Fate to jail. Now Fate ends up before a jury of 12, 8 black, 4 white. They present false evidence, false video, false testimony. He has a public defender. Awful, man. Doesn't do anything. Like sits back, says nothing, no objections, nothing happens during trial. I spoke to the public defender personally, who told me this man deserved to go to jail if he was going to sell weed for the time that he did. Now, once that trial was over, his public defender, who never spoke up, never said a word, let everything happen, even the false evidence, even what was called entrapment. That's key. So what happened to Fate was entrapped, right?
Yeah.
He was also told to get 2 dime bags, right? Which was specific to breaking up the marijuana into separate packages, which gives you an intent to distribute charge. What people don't know about marijuana, a lot of times in a lot of states, man, you're better off with a pound of weed than you are with a dime bag. And people will say, that's a lot of weed. But if you got pulled over with a pound and they're like, "Why do you have this?" You like, "It's medicinal use." And even if you don't have that opportunity to present, medical cards or whatever, it's a ticket, right? That's a ticket. 2 dime bags is intent to distribute. So, something worth thousands of dollars versus something worth $20 now gets you time in jail.
Man.
So Fate ends up getting life in prison without parole for 2 dime bags, right? Life. This he had a prior when he was a youth, which shouldn't even counted from my understanding. If I look back, I may be misquoting that, but he had a prior. I know he had a prior, like breaking entering, like when he was 16 or something. But one thing that happened to him was he had just served 10 years, so he'd been out. He served 10 years for, I don't know how much I can really say here, but there was another person who he ended up taking the blame for their crime, which was a family member who set him up, right?
Yeah.
So he ends up doing 10 years for this person, gets out, now he's homeless, right? Lost his whole family, lost his life, right? They give him life. The jury was 8-4. Obviously, those 8 black people who I told you said, no, he's innocent. Those 4 white people say he's guilty. And they also don't do unanimous jury, right, in Napoleonic law. Therefore, he's convicted, right, with the 8-4 number, right? When they hear, the jury heard that he was getting life, they went berserk, like, oh, we didn't know he was getting life, this blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh, well, too bad, right? Yeah. So by the time I met Fate, he was into his sentence about 10, 11 years at that time. Man. And for $20 worth of weed. And I tell you, man, it was an amazing guy, man. He had so much faith. He had so much, like, he taught me so much about faith and God, because he was just like, he's like, man, if I ever get out, my story will be a story that'll help other people, help young kids. But God, has shown me that he's still willing to bless me even here and keep me even here. And that would, like, dude, he would just light up my faith in terms of hearing him speak, right? Long story short, it took a few years, but I used the kids. I was like, hey, let's make a short film around this and see if we can get some buzz, with him and maybe get him out. And the reason I knew so much about Napoleonic law is because I ended up speaking to one of Obama's main attorney. Actually, she got like 2,000 pardons for Obama, and to get people out of prison. She was in Texas, I think, at the time, and she hit me and was like, yeah, my cases were federal. I'm not going to be able to help him, but here's what we can do. And she helped with well checks and different things. And yeah, I mean, we eventually made this movie. That movie started getting around. We made a campaign. It got like 60,000 signatures on this campaign. We got to Governor Edwards, and it looked like we were going to get him out. We got like what's called a commutation, and all this stuff was happening. And it took a couple years, and something else happened. They said no. And so it was very disappointing. I know Fate was disappointed, angry, different things. Yeah. And at a point, it was like, we didn't know what to do. And, we're kind of giving up in a lot of ways. I never gave up, in all honesty. There were other people, a woman he would write to who would send him stuff who was like interestingly, I think she was like a marijuana activist. So she had been connected with, I don't know, there were 50 cases across the country like this, like his or similar. And she became good friends with him. So she was a good support system. Nonetheless, he would write me every once in a while. I write him. I helped him find his daughter. He had a daughter who thought he was dead. Her name was Faith, which was also crazy. Reconnected this daughter with her father, which was, a very amazing thing. Ultimately, somebody saw the movie and went to the Innocence Project, which I'd already been to, but nothing happened. But I guess the right time, man, this person saw the film, went to Innocence Project, shared with them. They got, their attorneys involved and ended up getting him out of prison. Yeah, man. So he ended up getting free from prison, and that was an amazing thing. I mean, unfortunately, man, the flip side, the flip side to the coin was he was out and he ended up, back in Louisiana, man, and not to no fault of his own. He was really trying to be a stand-up citizen, man, and somebody ended up murdering him. Wow. Robbing him and murdering him, man. So that was devastating for me, for the kids, for his daughter. So it was just, it was kind of, I kind of felt like, oh man, I should have you know, he was better off in jail. You know, like it's crazy when you deal with these kind of things and you're like, you know, you want to help people, man, and then the world has another agenda.
Yeah,
But yeah, man, rest in peace to Faith Vincent Winslow, man.
yeah,
One of my proudest moments, I think, as a filmmaker was helping free a man from
yeah.
prison
You,
from doing some art. Yeah.
yeah, man. You did your job well, and shout out to you for doing the research and helping that man out right there. You know, and putting that faith and everything in you, and it's you did a lot, man, and that's why I like talk to you about your films and everything you've done because everything's been different from what I've read and seen and researched and watched. Like films like Lou, Jim Rat, and
Mhm.
Bones, Faith. Trying to butcher this is
Mhm.
Reveal. I think that's another is Reveal. Rev.
Revly. Yeah,
Hey,
that's a real old one.
see
Yeah,
how
I
my
had a lot of short films that did like I don't know they did well. But
yeah,
yeah, Revly was kind of a World War II project,
yeah,
and it dealt with black people in Nazi Germany. So
yeah.
that's what that was kind of bringing light to that, and so that was what that was about. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You've been doing some work, brother, and that's why we're happy to have you on the show because it's we come across a lot of there are phenomenal independent filmmakers, but there are some other ones. No shade towards them, but we see that they make this. They stay in that genre, and we do need that of
Mhm.
their genre, the same thing. But we also do need to see something different, and what you're doing is totally different. Where you putting a message behind it, and you showing some real life problems and some real life things with people that are real, and we
Yeah.
need both of them. And the way how you tell the story, but also, like I said, not come off too preachy, but to get the message across. And so,
Yeah.
I know God is like really shining His light on you of what you're doing because we need to hear stories like this. Keep going. Some of these are the best stories I've been told, the realistic stories. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, thank you. Hats off to you
Oh
for doing
no. Yeah. Thank you, man. I wish it had more of an impact in different ways, but you never know what God is doing. And I learned that lesson early, just to make stuff, man. And I've said it, in different interviews, and I know I'm in a different season, but a lot of times people ask me why I do this, and I say sometimes it's for the project, sometimes it's for the person, sometimes it's for both.
it.
And so I used to be in the music business, and I remember, man, there was a time when I was a rapper, and I would tour. I was on like a Def Jam tour, just doing stuff, man. I'd open up for like T.I. and I don't know, David Banner, Lil Flip, LL, obviously, giving my age a little bit, but I would
Hey,
open up for these guys, and I had a single that was in Atlanta at the time. It was spinning a little bit, but nothing was happening in the career the way I wanted to. And what was interesting was I was also a Christian rapper that was invading these spaces, because been I've been in the secular market and come out of that, street stuff. God had at that point changed my life. But I was sharing the music in a way where it was relatable, which is why I ended up on these Def Jam tours. They didn't understand I was Christian because of the way I was doing this music. Um, and so, yeah, it was funny, man, because I had developed my own slang and different stuff. So I'd be talking about, it's not like I'd be talking about robberies. I'd be talking about praise to God. It was just this whole thing that I had developed about worship and like Wu-Tang in a way where Wu-Tang had their own slang about stuff. I had developed
right.
this language in terms of expressing. So anyway, it was funny. I was in a Walmart parking lot. I remember, man, I was complaining, bro. I was mad. Like, I was just like, God, what is happening, man? It's like, why am I not blowing up? And I had this song out called Cousins. And it was actually kind of dope. It was dedicated to a friend of ours who had been rapping and took his life. And it was kind of like, the idea of John and Jesus, like we cousins, kind of thing. And so, but anyway, I had the song. I didn't like it, but it was a song that was playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it was just more commercial. Like I was at the time was trying to feel like street, and I wanted to like have like a certain kind of market. And this commercial song kept playing. I was like, that song is whack.
mm.
And this guy came up to me in the parking lot. He was working at Walmart. He's like, "Hey, I know you," and I was like, "Nah, I don't know you." He was like, "Yeah, I got your album. I got your album." I was like, "Oh, really?" He's like, yeah. I was like, cool, man, appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just dismissing him, like, cool, man, because I just started thinking about that album, man, that's whack. You know what I mean? Like, and so, you know, he's like, but he was like, persistent. He's like, nah, hold on, man, let me tell you, I don't have it anymore. And I was like, oh, no worries, man, I got one in the truck, I'll give it to you. He's like, okay, but no, that's not what I want to tell you. I want to tell you why I don't have it. And I was like, oh, okay. He was like, my homegirl called me, bro. And I was listening to that song Cousins. And I was in my mind still like, oh man, whatever, right? He was like, my homegirl called me, she was about to commit suicide. And I stopped. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah. And he was like, hey, don't do it. I'm gonna bring you a song. I need you to listen to it. And I froze up. I mean, I feel myself freezing up kind of right now trying to tell it, man. He was just like, I took her the song, bro. And she listened to it. And it changed her life. She didn't want to commit suicide. Saved her life. And I looked, man, and I just started crying, bro. I was like, oh my God, like, man, you know what I mean? Thank you. That's crazy to me. But I was crying not only because of the moment, it was more so I was feeling like, wow, God, you just slapped me in the face. You know what I'm saying? Like, you slapped me in the face because here I was just complaining, saying this stuff about this song. And you brought this person to me at this very moment to tell me that my song wasn't about me being a superstar rapper and having multi-millions hits and all the stuff that I wanted. It was about saving this one person. You know what I mean? And that changed my mindset about whatever I made. It was like, you know, like there's a scripture where it's like Christ will lead the 99 to get one. You know what I mean? And so I started looking at that and I started realizing like these testimonies from people, man, who they thought they do something insignificant and it'd be about that one person. You know what I mean? And so I don't know what that one person is doing. I never even met the person. But I knew at that moment that that one song was for that one person. And I needed to be okay with that. And I needed to be grateful for that. And that changed my aspect and how I approach art after that.
Amen.
You never know the impact your art have on somebody. You know, we may not see it in that light, but you never know. It may be a life-changing thing for someone. So
absolutely.
A few more questions before we get you out of here.
Sure.
Now. You know, you worked on a lot of films, a lot of award-winning films. You run your own company. Do you ever just sit back and just look at the work that you've done and just kind of reflect on just your accomplishments you've done, or is it always just on go mode? What's next? Just grind? Because I know what it's like to be in that mindset. You can get caught up in just being go and never sit back and really just look back and like, you know, I've really done a lot here with my career.
Yeah, I probably need to do more reflection. I think, you know, again, it's just like anybody is, you know, people look at your accomplishments and they're like, wow, this is awesome. You know, for me, I have not yet accomplished what I want to accomplish in terms of my career. And so I'm still getting started, even being this far in. And so, yeah, I definitely have sat back and I need to reflect. And there are times where I just have to sit and I have to say, you know, thank you, regardless of not, you know, things not going the way I want. I know that I've been blessed to be, you know, a part of, you know, various projects, to meet various people, work with various people, be honored by various people and be in different circles. And to be light in those circles. I realized that even in, you know, doing this, a lot of times it was just me needing to be there for other people. I'd be like, well, I'm on this project, and then it'd be a particular person that was associated with that project. You know, I even feel like Birth of a Nation was that. I was that for Nate, you know what I mean? And a lot of other people there were like, you know, Nate would call me to pray, man. Like, he called me to pray. I mean, I remember Nate called me into a room with all kinds of execs and superstars, man, at his crib. And he was just, you know, trying to break down, you know, what had happened and the things that were happening and what to expect and what not to expect. And in that moment, he turned to me, he's like, hey, man, can you lead us in prayer? And it was crazy. And I was just like, okay. And I started praying. But not only did that happen, then the Holy Spirit came. And the Holy Spirit came. It was just grown men crying over each other and praising God. And I mean, there were atheists in that room. You know what I mean? There were people who like had never experienced God in their life. And I remember this one particular exec, man, from the studio came up to me. He was like, man, I did not believe in God. He's like, I never had an experience like that in my life. He's like, this shifted something in me. Like, I can't. He said, I might, he's basically saying I have a long way to go, but I can't say that God isn't real after this.
Man, come on.
You know what I mean? It was kind of crazy. You know what I mean? So it's like those things are the things I take a lot of pride in. And those are the things I try to reflect on so that I don't get caught up in what I want, what I don't, what I don't have yet in this point in my career. Because, there's so many things that I have coming and things I want to do or things I, desire to do. People have no idea, and I feel like I believe this year and this season things are starting to roll, especially since I have a new project starting out this year in Tribeca.
Nice.
So I'm excited about that.
Nice, man.
That's very inspirational. Just to hear. That's how I met Chorus was, actually through we go to the same church, Higher Dimension out here.
Yeah.
And just learning how to navigate the industry, as a Christian man, that it's because there's so much that's in this industry that comes with that, and it's just like so inspiring just to hear that, being able to be in those spaces and have those moments.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you for sharing.
I mean, God has kept absolutely. I was like, God has kept me, man, because I look back even with that. I mean, I was around Diddy, I was around these guys, and I'm like, God kept me in situations. I remember I was rapping, man, at that time, doing tours, doing stuff, and working for Diddy, and I didn't say nothing to him about rapping. Like my mouth never opened. Like God kept my mouth closed around him about rapping. I didn't say nothing to him about that. And I always wondered. I was like, wow, Bad Boy Entertainment. But as stuff progressed, and I heard things, I was like, oh, really? Like, oh, now stuff is coming out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Obviously, but it's just like you have so many things, man, so many situations where you're like, why God? And then you're like, oh, that's why. And it's happened time and time again. Time and time again. I'm telling you, man, he has put me around so many people and their lives will fall apart. And I was thinking I was supposed to connect with them. And he's like, nah, I'm not opening that door. And I'd be like, why? And then next thing you know, they on the news. I'm like, oh, man.
Oh, I see why. Man, dude, I'm telling you, man, God will provide a way and show you some things. We just talked about that earlier. God will show you some things, man, and He just protect you, man. But we know, like, you met some heavy hitters, the Nate Parkers, the Mahershala Ali's, the Ryan Goslings, the Steven Spielbergs, the everyone, and gotta give a quick shout out to your wife and your kids, because that's the backbone right there. That's everything. But all that would not be possible without God. And I know you got some gems, so many gems, but what's one gem that stick with you that helps you along the way that you can share with the audience?
Man, life throws you a lot of ups and downs. You know what I mean? I think, like, I'll be honest, it's funny. Like, I couldn't even correct you. And I feel like now, even having this to say, like, I'm not married anymore. You know what I mean? And that's one of those things that's unfortunate. You know what I mean? Like, you get in this business and you're like, oh my gosh, like, you think something's going to last forever, especially when you feel like you riding with God and doing what he wants you to do. And, sometimes, man, life just has like a different agenda. You know what I mean? But she, Kimberly, was a huge blessing in my life, and I wouldn't be anywhere without, her support and the steps that she helped, in terms of helping me in my career and getting me to where I needed to be, man. And so it's always been blessed. I mean, to be with somebody, 18 years, man, it's like, that was a long time, bro. So, but yeah, I mean, it's still, the blessing behind that is our relationship is good and our children are good. And, and this now navigating singleness and what that means is very different for me in this season. But my advice is, you never know, man. You don't know what life will hand you. You don't know the curveballs that are going to be thrown to you. And the best thing you can do, my suggestion, is to have faith in Christ, faith in God, and those things, man, that come against you in life are going to, he's going to ground you. He's going to get you through these storms. He's going to get you through these rough times. And no matter what it is. And I mean, look, I'm going through stuff now. I'm going through things that, people wouldn't even expect, man. It's just how life is. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's just life is life. Life will life. And so you definitely need to go with God. So
Thank you. We definitely appreciate you joining us today. Go ahead and tell everybody, our audience, where they can find you, follow you.
Yeah, you can follow me on IG, Korstiaan 1, so KORSTIAAN 1. Also Korstiaan Vandiver on Facebook. I'm KORS at KORS on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm sure you can also go to www.korstiaanvandiver.com or blueangelentertainment.com. You can get me there as well. And I don't know. If you got work, hit me on LinkedIn. And I didn't talk about it, but shout out to Color Book is the film we have coming out in Tribeca, premiering in Tribeca. So that's starring Will Catlett. Shouts to the whole team: Kaya, Alexandria, Autumn Bailey, Ford, amazing producer, David Fortune, writer director. I'm an executive producer on the project. So. Yeah, man, it's a great project. So I hope people look out for that. When we sell in Tribeca, then we'll find out where we're going, on a platform or a theater. So we'll keep you posted.
Awesome.
Nice, bro.
Thank you.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, appreciate you for sharing all that with us, brother. Just Acting Up Show, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure y'all look out for Course. He's steady on his way, man. Thank you again, bro.
Thank you.